Park's suite was dark except for the city lights streaming through the windows. Sarah stood frozen in the doorway, every instinct screaming at her to run. This was wrong. This was illegal. This was everything she'd sworn she'd never become. But Chan-wook's voice echoed in her head, "You're better than you think you are. Trust yourself." Sarah closed the door softly behind her and got to work. The suite was lived in, clothes draped over chairs, room service trays on the table, a laptop open on the desk. That laptop was her target. Chan-wook had given her a USB drive that would copy the hard drive in under 3 minutes. All she had to do was plug it in and wait. Simple. Except her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She crossed to the desk, pulled the USB drive from her pocket, and inserted it into the laptop. A small icon appeared on the screen, a loading bar showing the copy progress. 2 minutes, 53 seconds remaining. Sarah's heart hammered so loud she was certain someone would hear it. She forced herself to move, to search the room while the drive did its work. Chan-wook wanted more than just computer files. He wanted bank statements, contracts, anything that revealed Park's business dealings. The desk drawers were locked. But Min had taught her how to pick simple locks. Sarah pulled a hairpin from her pocket, one of many tools Min had made her practice with until her fingers bled, and worked the lock mechanism. Click. The drawer slid open. Inside, manila folders stuffed with documents. Sarah pulled out her phone, another gift from Chan-wook, this one with a camera designed to photograph documents clearly even in low light, and began snapping pictures. Bank statements showing transfers to offshore accounts. Contracts with construction companies that Sarah recognized from news reports about corruption scandals. Email printouts discussing bribes to city officials. Park Jin-ho wasn't just connected to organized crime. He was organized crime hiding behind a legitimate business facade. 2 minutes left on the USB drive. Sarah moved faster, photographing everything she could. Her training had taught her to be methodical, thorough. Don't just grab what looks important. Context matters. Adjacent documents might reveal connections that aren't obvious at first glance. She was so focused on her work that she almost didn't hear it. The sound of the keycard in the door. Sarah's blood turned to ice. The USB drive was still copying. 1 minute, 40 seconds remaining. If she pulled it out now, the copy would be incomplete. If she left it in, Park would see it immediately when he sat at his desk. The door handle turned. Sarah's mind raced through her options in a fraction of a second. Hide, but where? The closet was too obvious. Under the bed was too cliched. The bathroom, maybe, but Park would likely use it right away. Think. The door opened. Sarah grabbed the USB drive, still copying, 30 seconds remaining, and dove behind the curtains just as Park Jin-ho walked in. Her heart was hammering so hard she was certain he could hear it. The curtains were thick but not opaque. If he looked closely, if he turned on the lights, if he came near the window. She held her breath. Park was talking on his phone, his voice slurred with alcohol. Telling you the minister is on board. The permits will go through next week and then we're golden. 20 billion won easy. He walked deeper into the room. Sarah heard him pouring a drink from the minibar. The USB drive felt like it was burning in her hand. 20 seconds. 15. No concerns, Park continued. The only people who knew about the offshore accounts are dealt with. Permanently. Sarah's stomach turned. Dealt with. Permanently. That meant. 10 seconds. I'm telling you there's no trail. Everything is clean. The only thing that could fuck us is if someone got access to my computer, and that's not happening. I've got encryption, passwords, the works. 5 seconds. Park moved toward the desk. Sarah's breath caught. The USB drive beeped softly, so softly she almost didn't hear it, but in the silence of the suite, it was like a gunshot. The copy was complete. Park stopped. Did you hear that? Sarah's mind went blank with terror. This was it. She was going to die here, behind a curtain in a hotel suite, and no one would ever know what happened to her. But then Park laughed. I'm hearing things. Too much champagne. Listen, I have to go. Beautiful woman waiting for me downstairs. I'll call you tomorrow. He hung up. Sarah heard him moving toward the bathroom, heard the door close. The moment it did, she moved. Fast. Silent. Everything Min had drilled into her. She crossed the room in 3 steps, grabbed her cleaning cart from the hallway where she'd left it and slipped out the door. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely swipe the keycard to lock it behind her. Then she was in the hallway pushing her cart, just another invisible maid. Her legs felt like water. Her vision was tunneling. But she kept moving, kept breathing, kept playing the role until she reached the service elevator. Only when the doors closed and she was alone did she let herself collapse against the wall, gasping for air. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. Sarah pulled out the USB drive and stared at it. This tiny piece of plastic contained information worth millions. Information that could destroy Park Jin-ho's empire. Information that made her complicit in whatever Chan-wook planned to do with it. The elevator descended. Sarah straightened her uniform, wiped her face, and prepared to step back into character. But inside something had shifted. Some final barrier between who she'd been and who she was becoming had cracked. She'd broken into a suite. Stolen information. Evaded detection. And worst of all, she'd felt a thrill when she'd succeeded. Lee Chan-wook was waiting when she returned to the apartment at 2 a.m. He sat in the living room, lights dim, a glass of whiskey in hand. He looked up when she entered, his expression unreadable. "Well," he said. Sarah pulled out the USB drive and her phone, setting them on the coffee table between them. "Everything you asked for. Bank statements, contracts, emails. He's paying bribes to at least 3 city officials. And he said something on the phone about people being dealt with permanently. I think he's had people killed." Chan-wook picked up the USB drive, turning it over in his fingers. "Did he see you?" "No. But it was close. He came back to the room while I was still there. And I hid. Waited until he went to the bathroom. Then I left." Sarah hesitated. "Sarah, come here." She walked closer, stopping a few feet away from his chair. He stood, and suddenly they were face to face, close enough that she could smell his cologne, see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "You did well," he said softly. "Better than well. You improvised under pressure. You didn't panic. You got everything I needed and got out clean." He reached out, and before Sarah could step back, his hand cupped her cheek. "I'm proud of you." Those 3 words, simple, paternal, completely unexpected, hit her like a physical blow. When was the last time anyone had said they were proud of her? Her mother was always too stressed. Her teachers had been indifferent. Her supervisors at the hotel had only ever criticized. But this man, this criminal, this captor, this person who had turned her life upside down, was proud of her. Sarah's eyes burned with unexpected tears. "Don't cry," Chan-wook said, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "Not when you've just proven how strong you are." "I broke the law," Sarah whispered. "I stole. I'm a criminal now. You're a survivor. There's a difference." His hand dropped from her face, but he didn't step back. "The world is divided into 2 types of people, Sarah. Those who take what they need and those who wait for permission that never comes. You've spent your whole life in the second category. Tonight you join the first. You're making it sound noble. It's not. It's just crime. Crime is what people with power call it when people without power refuse to starve quietly." His voice was intense now, passionate in a way she'd never heard from him. "Every wealthy person you saw at that gala tonight has broken more laws than you'll break in a lifetime. The difference is they can afford lawyers, accountants, politicians. They've rigged the game so thoroughly that their crimes are called business, while yours are called theft. Don't let them make you feel guilty for learning to play by their rules." Sarah wanted to argue. Wanted to say that 2 wrongs didn't make a right, that there were still lines worth respecting. But she was too tired, too overwhelmed, and some part of her, the part that had felt a thrill when she'd escaped Park's suite, agreed with him. "What happens now?" she asked instead. "Now?" Chan-wook walked back to his chair and picked up his whiskey. "Now I use this information to destroy Park Jin-ho's business empire. I'll leak the corruption evidence to journalists, the offshore accounts to tax authorities. Within a month he'll be arrested. Within 2 months he'll be bankrupt. And into that vacuum I'll move my own people." "That's it? You're going to ruin his life." "He ruined plenty of lives building his empire. He's killed people, Sarah. You heard him say it yourself. I'm just balancing the scales." He took a sip. "But yes, that's it. No violence necessary. Just information deployed strategically. That's the business I'm in." Sarah sank onto the couch, exhaustion finally catching up with her. "And me? What's my next assignment?" "Rest. You've earned it. Take tomorrow off. Sleep late. Relax." He paused. "Then we'll discuss your payment." Sarah had almost forgotten about the money. 5 million won a month, he promised. Enough to change everything. "I'll transfer it to an account in your name tomorrow," Chan-wook said, reading her mind. "You can send as much as you want to your family. Or keep it all. Your choice." For the first time in weeks, Sarah felt tears prick her eyes again. Real tears, not from fear or stress but from the simple, overwhelming relief of financial security. Her mother could get treatment. Her brother could stay in school. She could breathe. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me. You earned it." He set down his glass and stood. "Get some sleep, Sarah. You've had a long night." He walked toward his bedroom, then paused at the door. "And Sarah? Welcome to the family. You're one of us now." The door closed behind him. Sarah sat alone in the living room, staring at nothing, trying to process what she'd become. A criminal. A thief. One of Chan-wook's people. But also, finally, impossibly, someone with power. Someone who could protect the people she loved. Someone who mattered. She should feel guilty. She should feel ashamed. Instead, she felt alive. The next months blurred together in a haze of jobs, training, and money, so much money that Sarah stopped feeling shocked when she checked her bank balance. She sent half to her mother, who called crying with gratitude. Kept the rest for herself, for the first time in her life having savings that weren't immediately consumed by survival. But more than the money, what changed was Sarah herself. She took on more assignments. A business conference where she posed as a translator, listening to private negotiations and reporting back. A yacht party where she played a tipsy socialite, flirting with a CEO long enough to clone his phone. A corporate merger meeting where she served coffee and photographed documents during bathroom breaks. Each job came with risks, but also with rewards, both financial and psychological. Sarah was good at this. Better than good. She could slip into any role, charm anyone, disappear without a trace. Lee Chan-wook watched her transformation with something that looked like pride. Or possession. Or maybe both. "You're wasted on small jobs," he said one evening, 6 weeks into her new life. They were having dinner together, something that had become routine. Every night, unless he was traveling, they ate together. Discussed the day. Debated philosophy and morality and the nature of power. Sarah had started looking forward to these dinners, which bothered her more than she wanted to admit. "What do you mean, small jobs?" she asked, twirling pasta around her fork. "Information gathering. Surveillance. You're capable of so much more." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "I have a job coming up that requires someone with your particular skills. But it's more involved than what you've done before." "How involved?" "You'd need to establish a cover identity. Maintain it for several weeks. Potentially get close to someone very dangerous." He paused. "Potentially seduce them." Sarah's fork clattered against her plate. "Seduce?" "If necessary. The target is a businessman with ties to a trafficking ring. I need information on his operation, his partners, his victims. You'd pose as a potential investor, gain his trust, access his files. And if he wants more than business? Then you use your judgment. I'm not asking you to sleep with him, though I wouldn't stop you if you decided it was necessary. I'm asking you to make him want to impress you. To show off. To reveal secrets he'd normally keep hidden." Sarah's mind raced. This was different from photographing documents or eavesdropping on conversations. This was infiltration. Long-term deception. The kind of spy work she'd only seen in movies. "What if I can't pull it off?" she asked. "You can. I've seen how you move through the world now. You're confident. Elegant. Dangerous in ways that men find irresistible." His eyes held hers. "You've become exactly what I knew you could be." There was something in his voice, something heated and possessive, that made Sarah's pulse quicken. Somewhere along the way their relationship had shifted. He was still her captor, yes. Still the person who had destroyed her old life and rebuilt her into something new. But he was also the person who believed in her. Who pushed her to be more than she'd ever thought possible. Who looked at her like she was the most fascinating person in the world. It was messed up. She knew it was messed up. But that didn't make it any less true. "When would this job start?" Sarah asked carefully. 2 weeks. Which gives us time to perfect your cover identity. You'd be Sarah Chin, an African-Chinese investor with family money and expensive tastes. You'd attend the target's charity event, express interest in his business ventures and take it from there. "And what happens to him after I get the information?" Chan-wook's expression darkened. "He goes to prison. Or he disappears. Depending on what we find and how cooperative he is with authorities. Either way he stops hurting people." Sarah should have been horrified. Should have refused. But instead she found herself nodding. "Okay. I'll do it." Just like that. He's a trafficker. He deserves whatever happens to him. She met Chan-wook's gaze steadily. "I'm not the girl you found in that hotel suite anymore. I know what the world really is now. And I'd rather be someone who stops monsters than someone who pretends they don't exist." Chan-wook's smile was slow and approving. There she is. The real Sarah Hayes. Finally. He stood and walked around the table, stopping beside her chair. Sarah's breath caught as he leaned down, his face inches from hers. "You're magnificent," he said softly. "Do you know that? You've taken everything I've thrown at you and turned it into strength. You're not a victim anymore. You're a weapon." His hand came up to touch her hair, his fingers sliding through the strands. Sarah should pull away. Should maintain distance. Should remember that this man had kidnapped her, controlled her, turned her into a criminal. But she didn't move. "What am I to you?" she whispered. "Really? Am I just an asset? A tool?" Chan-wook's expression shifted, something raw and almost vulnerable crossing his face. "You're the most interesting person I've ever met. You're brilliant and adaptable and so much stronger than you know. And yes, you're mine. But that doesn't make you less valuable. It makes you priceless." His thumb brushed across her lower lip. "I should hate you," Sarah breathed. "I know. You ruined my life. I remade it. You're a criminal. So are you now." His smile was dark. "The question is, do you hate that? Or do you love it?" Sarah's heart was hammering. They were so close now that she could feel his breath against her skin. One of them just needed to close the distance, to cross that final line that had been building between them for weeks. "I don't know," she admitted. "I don't know what I feel anymore." "Then let me help you figure it out." His hand cupped her jaw, tilting her face up toward his. "Tell me to stop and I will. Tell me you don't want this and I'll walk away. But if you're even a little bit curious about what this could be." He left the sentence unfinished. Waiting. Giving her the choice. Was messed up. All of it was messed up. This man had taken everything from her. Her freedom, her innocence, her old life. He'd turned her into someone she barely recognized. He'd made her complicit in crimes she'd never imagined committing. But he'd also made her powerful. Protected. Valued. He looked at her like she was something precious instead of something disposable. And somewhere along the way she'd started craving that look the way she used to crave safety. This is the moment that changes everything. If Sarah kisses him, there's no going back. She's not just his employee anymore, she's his. But if she doesn't, if she maintains that distance, maybe she can still reclaim some part of who she used to be. What should she do? Tell me in the comments. And if your heart is racing as fast as mine, hit that subscribe button, because whatever happens next, it's going to be intense. Sarah leaned forward and closed the distance. The kiss was electric, fierce and desperate and inevitable. Chan-wook's hand tightened in her hair, pulling her closer. His other arm wrapped around her waist, lifting her from the chair and against his body. Sarah's hands found his chest, his shoulders, his neck, touching him like she'd wanted to for weeks without admitting it. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. But it felt right in a way nothing had felt right since the night her life had changed. Chan-wook broke the kiss first, breathing hard, his forehead resting against hers. "Sarah. Don't," she said quickly. "Don't ruin this by analyzing it or explaining it or asking if I'm sure. I'm not sure about anything anymore. But I know I want this. Want you. Even though I shouldn't. Even though it's insane." "It is insane," he agreed, but he was smiling. "But then again, so is everything else about us." He kissed her again, slower this time, more deliberate. Sarah melted into it, into him, letting go of the last remnants of the girl she used to be. That girl was dead. She died the moment she'd said yes in that hotel suite. What remained was someone new. Someone dangerous. Someone who could kiss a criminal without guilt because she was a criminal too now. Chan-wook pulled back slightly, his eyes searching hers. "This changes things between us. I know. You're still free to leave. To walk away from all of this. I've never wanted to keep you against your will." Sarah laughed. A sharp, slightly hysterical sound. "You're lying. You absolutely have kept me against my will. But the thing is..." She paused, forcing herself to be honest. "I'm not sure I want to leave anymore. I don't know what that makes me. Stockholm Syndrome maybe. Or pragmatism. Or maybe just the truth that I'm more like you than I want to admit." "You're nothing like me," Chan-wook said seriously. "You still feel things. Care about things. I gave up on caring a long time ago. Then why do you look at me like that?" "Like what?" "Like I matter." His expression softened. "Because you do. More than I expected. More than I wanted, honestly. It's inconvenient." Sarah smiled despite herself. "Inconvenient. That's romantic." "I'm not a romantic person. I don't do flowers and poetry and promises of forever. But I do protect what's mine. And you're mine now, Sarah. Completely." The possessiveness should have bothered her. Should have set off alarm bells. But instead it made her feel safe. Wanted. Claimed in a way that was both primal and addictive. "What happens now?" she asked. Now we go to bed. Together. And tomorrow we start preparing for your next job. And we see where this goes. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. But I need you to understand something. I'm dangerous. I've done terrible things. I will do terrible things again. And being with me means accepting that. Means being complicit in ways that go beyond just working for me. I know, Sarah said. And she did. She understood exactly what she was agreeing to. Chan-wook studied her for another long moment. Then he took her hand and led her toward his bedroom, not hers but his. The connecting door she'd never crossed. The final barrier. Sarah followed without hesitation. Some part of her knew this was the point of no return. That after tonight she wouldn't just be his employee or his captive or even his accomplice. She'd be his completely in every way that mattered. But she'd already crossed so many lines. What was one more? Sarah woke in Chan-wook's bed, sunlight streaming through windows that overlooked Seoul's glittering skyline. His arm was wrapped around her waist, his breathing deep and even against her neck. For a moment, one perfect, stolen moment, she let herself enjoy it. The warmth, the safety, the feeling of being wanted. Then reality crashed back. She'd slept with her captor. With a criminal. With someone who had fundamentally altered the course of her life through violence and coercion. And she'd loved every second of it. What's wrong with me? Sarah thought. What kind of person does this make me? But she knew the answer. It made her someone practical. Someone who had learned that survival meant adaptation. Someone who had discovered that power was more addictive than any moral high ground. Chan-wook stirred, his arm tightening around her. You're thinking too loud, he murmured, his lips brushing her shoulder. I can feel your brain spinning. I'm just processing. Regretting? Sarah considered lying. But he'd know. He always knew. No. Which I think bothers me more than if I did regret it. He chuckled, the sound vibrating through her back. You're allowed to want things, Sarah. Even complicated things. Even wrong things. Is that your philosophy? Want whatever you want and damn the consequences. More or less. He released her, sitting up and stretching. In the morning light, she could see the full extent of his tattoos, dragons and flowers and Korean characters that wrapped around his torso. Though I prefer to think of it as being honest about human nature. We're animals pretending to be civilized. The sooner you accept that, the easier it is to live with yourself. Sarah sat up too, pulling the sheet around herself. Is that how you justify everything you do? I don't justify anything. I don't need to. I do what I do because I'm good at it and because someone has to. He stood, completely unself-conscious about his nudity, and walked to the window. The world is filled with predators, Sarah. I'm just one of the more honest ones. You really believe that? I do. He glanced back at her. But we can debate philosophy later. Right now you have a role to study. Your target's dossier is on the dining table. Start memorizing. Just like that, they were back to business. As if last night had been just another transaction, another line crossed. Maybe for him it was. But for Sarah, it felt like something had fundamentally shifted. She wasn't just his employee anymore. She was his. And the terrifying part was that she didn't want to fight it. 2 weeks later, Sarah Chin, wealthy African-Chinese investor with a taste for risky ventures, stepped into the Grand Miller for a charity gala benefiting children's hospitals. The irony wasn't lost on her. The man she was here to target, James Park, made his money trafficking young women and girls. And he was hiding behind a charity that supposedly helped children. Some monsters wore suits and smiled for cameras. Sarah had spent 2 weeks becoming Sarah Chin. Learning her backstory, wealthy family in Shanghai, educated at Columbia, now looking for investment opportunities in Asia. Learning her mannerisms, the particular way wealthy Chinese women held their champagne flutes, the careful English that suggested someone bilingual but not native. Learning to move like someone who had never known poverty, never scrambled for survival, never had to choose between food and rent. It was the most complete transformation yet. And Sarah was surprised by how easily it came to her. James Park was easy to spot, mid-40s, handsome in a bland corporate way, surrounded by sycophants who laughed too hard at his jokes. Sarah watched him for 30 minutes, learning his patterns before making her approach. She accidentally bumped into him at the bar, spilling his drink. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Her accent was perfect, African with just a hint of Chinese undertones. I'm such a klutz. Please, let me buy you another. James Park smiled, his eyes scanning her body in a way that made her skin crawl. But Sarah smiled back, playing the role. No harm done. Though you're right, you should buy me another. I'm James, by the way. Sarah Chin. She extended her hand. I'm new to Seoul. Just moved here last month to explore investment opportunities. Investment. His interest sharpened. What kind? Whatever's profitable. She leaned closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. My family made our money in shipping. Very traditional. Very boring. I'm looking for something more exciting. Higher risk, higher reward. You understand. She could see the calculations in his eyes. A wealthy woman, naive about Seoul's criminal underworld, looking for excitement. She was exactly the type he preyed on. I think I can help you with that, James said, his smile widening. Why don't we get out of this boring party and discuss opportunities somewhere more private? Too easy, Sarah thought. But she smiled and said, I'd love that. They ended up at an exclusive club in Gangnam, the kind of place where the drinks cost a month's rent and the clientele were all either very rich or very criminal, often both. James ordered bottle service and led Sarah to a private booth. So tell me about yourself, he said, sitting close enough that their thighs touched. What brings a beautiful woman like you to Seoul? Opportunity, Sarah said simply. She sipped her champagne, just sips, never enough to actually impair her, and let her body language suggest interest without being obvious. Shanghai is saturated. Hong Kong is complicated with the political situation. Seoul felt like the perfect middle ground. Growing economy, sophisticated infrastructure, and... She met his eyes. From what I hear, very profitable gray markets. Gray markets. Come on, James. We're both adults. I'm not looking for legitimate investments that return 8% a year. I'm looking for real money. The kind that comes from understanding how the world actually works. James's smile turned predatory. You're very direct. Life's too short to dance around what we both know is true. The real money is in the shadows. I just need someone to show me where those shadows are. She paused. For a percentage, of course. She could see him falling for it. This naive rich girl who thought she was being worldly, who had money but no sense. The perfect mark. I might know some opportunities, he said slowly, but they require discretion. And trust. I'm very discreet. And trust. She touched his hand lightly. Trust has to be earned, doesn't it? They talked for 2 more hours. Sarah played her role perfectly, interested but not desperate, wealthy but not untouchable, sophisticated but with just enough naivety to make her seem exploitable. She let him buy her dinner, let him touch her arm and her back, let him believe he was seducing her when really she was the one in control. By the end of the night, he'd invited her to tour one of his business ventures the following week. It's a modeling agency, he said. Very high-end. We represent some of the most beautiful women in Asia. I think you'd be impressed by our operation. A modeling agency. Right. Sarah knew exactly what kind of modeling he was talking about. I'd love to see it, she said, letting her voice suggest she understood more than she was saying. I'm always interested in businesses with beautiful products. James walked her to her car, a BMW that Chan-wook had provided for her cover, and kissed her cheek. I'll call you tomorrow. I think we're going to do great business together, Sarah Chin. I think so too. Sarah drove away, maintaining character until she was certain she wasn't being followed. Only then did she let the mask slip, let the revulsion show on her face. She touched him. Flirted with him. Let him believe she was interested in profiting from human trafficking. All for information that might take down his operation. The ends justify the means, she told herself. He's a monster. Whatever it takes to stop him is worth it. But was it? Where was the line between necessary deception and becoming the monster herself? Sarah didn't have an answer. She just drove back to Chan-wook's apartment, her mind spinning, her stomach churning, her body exhausted from hours of playing someone else. Chan-wook was waiting in the living room. He took one look at her face and poured her a whiskey without asking. How was it? He asked. He bought it completely. I'm touring his modeling agency next week. Sarah drained the whiskey in one swallow. He's exactly as disgusting as you said he'd be. Can you handle this? There's no shame in pulling out if it's too much. Sarah looked at him, this man who had turned her into a spy, a liar, a criminal. This man who had also made her powerful, protected, capable of protecting others. I can handle it, she said. I want to take him down. Whatever it takes. Chan-wook studied her for a long moment. Then he stood and pulled her into his arms, his hand cradling the back of her head. You're extraordinary. You know that. Sarah closed her eyes and let herself take comfort in his embrace. It was twisted, finding comfort in the arms of the man who had destroyed her old life. But her old life had been nothing but struggle and poverty and invisible suffering. At least now, when she suffered, it was for a purpose. At least now she mattered. The next week felt like a lifetime. Sarah maintained her cover, meeting James for coffee, for lunch, for drinks. Each time he was more confident, more open. He showed her pictures of his models. Talked about the wealthy men who hired them for private events. Hinted at the money involved. He never said the word trafficking explicitly. But he didn't have to. Sarah had been trained by men to read between the lines, to understand what wasn't being said. These girls, most of them barely 18, some probably younger, were being sold, rented, destroyed. And James Park was profiting from every second of their suffering. By the time the agency tour arrived, Sarah's resolve had hardened into something cold and implacable. She wore a designer dress that cost more than her first car, heels that made her legs look endless, and a smile that suggested she was excited about what she was about to see. The modeling agency was in an upscale office building in Gangnam. Everything looked legitimate: professional photos on the walls, glossy brochures, a receptionist who could have been a model herself. But Sarah had learned to see what others missed. The security cameras that covered every angle. The reinforced doors. The windows that didn't open. This was a prison dressed up as an opportunity. James led her through the facility, pointing out the training rooms, where girls learned to walk, to pose, to be whatever their clients wanted. Some of the girls looked at Sarah with hope. Maybe she was a client, maybe she represented escape. Others looked at her with dead eyes that had already given up. Sarah wanted to scream. Wanted to grab these girls and run. But she kept her mask in place, kept smiling, kept playing the role of the heartless investor. "Impressive operation," she said. "What's your profit margin?" James's eyes lit up. This was the language he understood. 30% after expenses. The girls work for room and board plus small commissions. The real money comes from the premium clients, politicians, businessmen, celebrities. They pay top dollar for discretion and quality. And the girls agree to this? They sign contracts. His tone suggested this technicality absolved him of any moral responsibility. Legal employment. They're free to leave anytime. But they weren't, Sarah knew. These contracts were written in Korean that non-native speakers couldn't fully understand. The debts for training and housing were structured to be impossible to repay. These girls were as trapped as Sarah had been in that hotel suite, maybe more so. "I'd like to see the contracts," Sarah said. "And the financial records. If I'm going to invest, I need to see proof of profitability." "Of course." James led her to his office, a spacious room with a view of the city and a desk that probably cost more than a year of those girls' labor. "Everything's on my computer. Let me pull up the spreadsheets." He turned to his laptop, his back to Sarah. This was her moment. She'd planted a listening device in his office during a bathroom break earlier. She'd photographed every room with the camera hidden in her bracelet. Now she just needed access to his computer. "James," she said, her voice taking on a particular quality. "Before we talk business, I have a confession." He turned interested. "Oh." Sarah stepped closer, let her dress brush against him. "I haven't been completely honest with you. I didn't come to Seoul just for investments. No. I came because I was bored. Lonely. Looking for something exciting. And you." She touched his chest. "You're the most exciting thing I've found." James's breathing quickened. His hands found her waist. "Sarah. Show me the contracts later," she whispered. "Right now, I want something else." She kissed him. It was revolting. His lips were cold, his hands grasping. But Sarah had learned to disconnect her body from her mind, to do what was necessary regardless of how it made her feel. She let him kiss her back, let his hands roam, let him believe he was getting exactly what he wanted. While he was distracted, her hand slipped into his jacket pocket and retrieved his phone. A quick press against his thumb, he was too focused on her to notice, unlocked it with his fingerprint. She slid it back into his pocket. That fingerprint was now stored on the special film Min had given her, a nearly invisible layer on Sarah's palm that captured biometric data. Later they could use it to access anything James Park had locked behind his security. Sarah broke the kiss, breathless, not from desire but from the sheer effort of maintaining the performance. "Not here," she said. "Not in your office. Take me somewhere special. Show me you're serious about us being partners." James's eyes were glazed. "I have a place. Private. We can discuss business and other things." "Perfect." She smiled, adjusting his tie. "But first let me freshen up. Where's the bathroom?" He pointed down the hall. Sarah walked away slowly, aware of his eyes on her body, and slipped into the bathroom. The moment the door locked, she pulled out her phone and texted Chan-wook, "Got the fingerprint. Need extraction plan. He's taking me to secondary location." The response came immediately, "GPS tracked. Team on standby. If you feel unsafe, say the word disappointed in any sentence. We'll move in 30 seconds. Sarah stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her makeup was perfect. Her hair was flawless. She looked like exactly what James Park thought she was, a beautiful, naive woman ready to be exploited. But underneath, she was something else entirely. Something dangerous. She fixed her lipstick, straightened her dress, and walked back out to finish the job. James Park's private place was a penthouse apartment in one of Seoul's most exclusive buildings. The kind of place that cost millions and came with the kind of privacy that made it perfect for crimes. Sarah noted the security as they entered. Doorman who looked the other way, cameras that probably fed to James's personal server, soundproofed walls that would muffle any screams. This was where he brought the girls, she realized. Where the real exploitation happened. "Impressive," she said, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows. "The view alone must be worth millions. 7 million, actually. For the apartment." James moved to the bar, pouring expensive scotch. "I like to keep my most important business dealings private. Can't be too careful in this line of work." "No, I suppose you can't." Sarah accepted the drink, pretending to sip. "So tell me, what's the real opportunity here? Because I don't think you brought me to your private penthouse just to discuss modeling contracts." James smiled, predatory and confident. "You're perceptive. I like that. The modeling agency is legitimate, technically. But it's also a pipeline for a much more lucrative business. High-end escorts. Private companions for wealthy men. The girls are already beautiful, already trained to please. We just expand their services. And they agree to this? Does it matter?" He set down his drink and moved closer. "These girls come from nothing. Poverty, abuse, no opportunities. We give them a chance to make real money. If they're smart, they save it and move on. If they're not..." He shrugged. "That's not my problem." Sarah felt rage boiling in her chest but kept her expression neutral. "And you want me to invest in expanding this operation? I want you to be my partner. 50-50 split on a new branch in Shanghai. You have the connections there, I have the infrastructure here. Together we could move 20, maybe 30 girls a month. At 20,000 per girl, that's 600,000 a month," Sarah finished. Her mind was doing different calculations. How many lives destroyed, how many girls sold, how many families devastated. That's significant. It's a fortune. He was close enough now that she could smell his cologne, expensive and cloying. And all we have to do is find girls desperate enough to sign contracts they don't read carefully enough. It's not illegal if they consent. But it wasn't consent, Sarah knew. Consent required understanding, options, freedom. These girls had none of those things. "I'm impressed," Sarah said, forcing enthusiasm into her voice. "You've really thought this through. I've been building this empire for 5 years. You'd be getting in at the perfect time." His hands found her waist. "So what do you say? Are you ready to make real money?" This was it. The moment where she either maintained cover or burned it all down. Sarah thought about those girls downstairs with their dead eyes. Thought about her own desperation 3 months ago, how easily she could have been one of them if circumstances had been slightly different. She thought about Chan-wook's words, "You're a weapon now. Use it." "I'm disappointed," Sarah said clearly. James frowned. "What?" "I said I'm disappointed." She stepped back from his grip. "Because I really wanted to believe you were smarter than this." His expression shifted from confusion to anger. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that I'm not Sarah Chin. I don't have family money. I'm not an investor." She reached up and pulled out the decorative hairpin that was actually a panic button. "I'm someone who's very good at getting information. And you just gave me everything I need to destroy you." James lunged for her, but Sarah was ready. Min's training kicked in automatically. She sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and used his momentum to throw him off balance. He crashed into the coffee table with a satisfying crunch. "You bitch." He scrambled to his feet, reaching for something in his jacket. A gun. Sarah's training took over completely. She kicked, hard, precise, connecting with his wrist. The gun clattered to the floor. James dove for it, but Sarah was faster. She kicked it away, then drove her knee into his stomach. He doubled over, gasping. The apartment door burst open. Chan-wook strode in with 3 of his men, all armed, all professional. He took in the scene, James on the floor, Sarah standing over him, completely in control, and smiled. "Good work," he said simply. Sarah stepped back, adrenaline still flooding her system. "He confessed to everything. I recorded it all." She pulled a small device from her bracelet. Trafficking, coercion, financial details. Enough to put him away for decades. Chan-wook crouched next to James, who was still gasping for breath. "James Park. I've been looking forward to meeting you. Well, not meeting you personally. More like dismantling your entire operation and making sure you never see daylight again." "Who the fuck are you?" James spat. "Someone who doesn't like competition in the information business. And someone who really doesn't like men who hurt women and children." Chan-wook stood. "Take him. Make sure the police get everything we have, the recordings, the financial records, the list of clients. Let's burn this whole thing down." His men dragged James Park away, still cursing and threatening. The moment they were gone, Sarah's legs gave out. She sank onto the couch, shaking. Chan-wook sat beside her, his hand finding hers. "Are you hurt?" "No. Just processing." She looked at him. "Those girls. The ones at the agency. What happens to them?" "I have people there now. Social services, immigration lawyers, safe houses. They'll be taken care of." He squeezed her hand. "You saved them, Sarah. You did that." Tears burned in her eyes. "I let him touch me, kiss me. I pretended to be interested in profiting from their suffering. You did what was necessary to stop him. There's no shame in that. Isn't there?" Sarah pulled her hand away. "Where's the line, Chan-wook? I've become exactly what you've made me, someone who lies and manipulates and hurts people to get what I want. How am I different from him? Because you do it to protect people, not exploit them. Because you feel guilt about it instead of pride. Because you're still capable of caring." He turned her face toward his. "You're nothing like him. Don't let this work poison how you see yourself." "Too late," Sarah whispered. "I already know what I am. What you've made me. What we've made you," Chan-wook corrected gently. "Together. And yes, you're dangerous now. Yes, you're capable of terrible things. But you're also capable of extraordinary good. You just proved that." Sarah wanted to believe him. Wanted to accept that what she'd done tonight was heroic instead of just more crime. But the truth was more complicated than that. She'd become a weapon. And weapons didn't get to choose their targets, they just destroyed whatever they were aimed at. "Take me home," she said finally. "I need to shower. Need to wash him off me." Chan-wook helped her stand, his arm around her waist as they walked to the elevator. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I'm proud of you. You were magnificent tonight." Sarah didn't respond. She just leaned against him and let him take her weight, too exhausted to think about what any of it meant. Sarah just took down a trafficking ring. She saved lives. But at what cost to her own soul? Is she a hero, or has she become just another criminal in Chan-wook's world? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're as emotionally destroyed as I am right now, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're heading into the final hour and everything is about to come to a head. After the James Park operation, something shifted in Sarah. She'd proven herself capable of deep cover work, of manipulation, of violence when necessary. Chan-wook gave her more responsibility, bigger assignments, access to parts of his empire she'd never seen before. But with that access came knowledge. And knowledge, as Chan-wook himself had said, was dangerous. Sarah started noticing things. The legitimate businesses that weren't quite legitimate. The politicians who visited Chan-wook's office and left with envelopes. The way people disappeared when they became inconvenient. She started wondering exactly what kind of empire she was part of. One night, unable to sleep, she went to Chan-wook's office, a room in the apartment she'd been told was off limits. But she had access to everything now, including his private spaces. She told herself she was just curious, just restless. But really she was looking for answers. The office was immaculate, organized with the same precision Chan-wook applied to everything. Sarah sat at his desk and opened his laptop. She knew his passwords, had memorized them months ago without consciously trying. She told herself she'd just look for a moment. Just satisfy her curiosity and leave. But what she found made her blood run cold. Files on dozens of people. Politicians, businessmen, criminals. But also, files on their families. Their children. Photos, addresses, school schedules. Everything you'd need to hurt them if they didn't cooperate. He's blackmailing them, Sarah realized. Not just gathering information. Using it to control people. She kept digging. Found financial records showing money laundering on a massive scale. Found evidence of arms deals, drug trafficking, contract killings. Found a list of names labeled eliminated. 17 people who had been, in Chan-wook's clinical terminology, removed as obstacles. Sarah's stomach turned. She'd known he was a criminal. But she'd somehow convinced herself he was a good criminal. Someone who only hurt bad people, who operated by some kind of code. But this was something else entirely. She was about to close the laptop when she saw one more folder. Labeled simply, Sarah Hayes. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were files on her entire life. Her mother's medical records. Her brother's school transcripts. Photos of their apartment, their daily routines. Security assessments. Threat analyses. He'd been watching her family from the beginning. Monitoring them. Making sure he always had leverage. But that wasn't what made Sarah's breath catch. At the bottom of the folder was a document dated 3 months ago. The night she'd walked into his hotel suite. It was a security memo. Subject: Grand Meridian Hotel, Suite 4201. Possible witness to meeting. Female early 20s hotel staff. Recommend assessment for recruitment or elimination. Sarah read it 3 times, unable to process what she was seeing. That night, the night that had changed everything, it hadn't been an accident. Chan-wook had been expecting someone. And when she'd walked in, he'd made a calculated decision: recruit her or kill her. Everything that came after, the training, the jobs, the relationship, all of it had been planned. Orchestrated. She'd thought she'd made a choice. Thought she'd had some agency in becoming what she'd become. But she'd never had a choice at all. You weren't supposed to see that. Sarah spun around. Chan-wook stood in the doorway, dressed in sleep clothes, his expression unreadable. How long have you been standing there? Sarah's voice was shaking. Long enough. He walked into the office, moving with that same predatory grace that had once seemed attractive and now just seemed threatening. I wondered when you'd go looking. Took you longer than I expected, honestly. It was all fake. Sarah stood, putting the desk between them. Everything. You manipulated me from the beginning. I gave you opportunities you never would have had otherwise. You turned me into a criminal. You made me think I was choosing this life when really you were controlling every aspect of it. Are you really that naive? Chan-wook's voice was sharp now. You think anyone has real choices? Your old life was just as controlled, by poverty, by capitalism, by a system designed to keep you powerless. At least with me, you got something for your servitude. You watched my family. You had files on my brother. To protect them. To make sure no one else could use them as leverage against you. Or to use as leverage yourself. Sarah's voice rose. You kept me here by threatening them. Everything I've done has been because I thought if I didn't, you'd hurt them. And now I find out you've been monitoring them this whole time? Yes, Chan-wook said simply. That's exactly what I did. Because that's how this world works, Sarah. You leverage what you have. You protect your assets. You make sure your investments pay off. Is that what I am? An investment. He stopped himself. Took a breath. You're more than that. You know you are. Do I? Because everything I thought I knew is apparently a lie. The job you gave me, the protection even. She gestured between them. Whatever this is, was any of it real? What we have is real, Chan-wook said, and for the first time she heard genuine emotion in his voice. Yes, I manipulated you initially. Yes, I controlled the situation. But what happened between us, that wasn't planned. That was unexpected. How convenient. Sarah. No. She held up her hand. Don't try to convince me this is something it's not. I'm not your partner. I'm not your girlfriend. I'm your asset. Your property. Just like those girls James Park was trafficking, except with better accommodations. Chan-wook's expression hardened. That's not fair. Isn't it? You took away my freedom, my choices, my entire life. You just did it more elegantly than he did. I gave you power. You gave me your power, which you can take away anytime you want. Sarah's voice cracked. Don't you see? I'm not free. I've never been free. I just traded one cage for a prettier one. The silence that followed was crushing. Chan-wook stared at her, something complicated and almost painful crossing his face. Then his expression smoothed back into that familiar mask of cold calculation. If that's how you see it, then leave, he said quietly. Walk out. Right now. I won't stop you. Sarah blinked. What? You heard me. If you think you're a prisoner, if you think I've given you nothing but a cage, then go. The door is open. Your passport is in the desk drawer. You have enough money in your account to start over anywhere in the world. Leave. It was a test. It had to be a test. Sarah looked at him, trying to read his expression, but his face was blank. Unreadable. And my family? She asked carefully. They'll be safe. I've never hurt your family. I've only protected them. That protection continues regardless of your choice. You're lying. I'm not. He walked to the desk, opened a drawer and pulled out her passport. He held it out to her. Take it. Walk out that door. Go back to your old life or start a new one somewhere else. I won't follow you. I won't contact you. You're free. Sarah stared at the passport in his hand. This was what she wanted, wasn't it? Freedom. Escape. A return to normalcy. But what was normal anymore? Could she really go back to being a hotel maid after everything she'd done? Could she live with the knowledge of her crimes and just forget about them? And more troubling, did she even want to? Why are you doing this? Sarah asked. Because you're right. You never chose this. I manipulated you into it. And I can live with a lot of things, Sarah, but I don't want you to stay because you think you have to. I want. He paused, something vulnerable flickering across his face. I want you to choose me. Freely. Or not at all. Sarah's mind was racing. Every logical part of her said to take the passport and run. To get as far away from this man and this life as possible. But another part, a part that scared her more than anything, didn't want to leave. Because despite everything, despite the manipulation and the lies, she'd found something here. Purpose. Power. A version of herself that was strong instead of desperate. And yes, she'd found him. This terrible, fascinating man who had destroyed her life and rebuilt it into something unrecognizable. I need time, Sarah said finally. To think. To figure out what I want. Chan-wook nodded slowly. Take all the time you need. But Sarah? Whether you stay or go, you need to understand something. His eyes met hers, intense and honest. I care about you. More than I should. More than I wanted to. And I'm sorry for how this started. But I'm not sorry for what you've become. He set the passport on the desk and walked out, leaving Sarah alone with the choice she'd never thought she'd have. Sarah has the one thing she thought she'd never have again, a real choice. Stay with the man who turned her into a criminal, or leave and try to reclaim what's left of her innocence. But after everything she's done, is there any innocence left to reclaim? Can she really go back to being nobody after tasting power? Join us for the final hour of this dark romance, where Sarah will make her choice and face the consequences. Thank you for watching Mafia Love Story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for part 3 where everything comes to a head.